I'm joined now by the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Thanks for joining me.
Great to see you.
So, a lot of Illinois and Chicago-centric news, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first and foremost, we have breaking news here on the national scene, and that is that the Epstein estate has released some documents showing that, in fact, Donald Trump has a much closer relationship to Epstein than we'd even previously known. The news, according to the emails, is that Donald Trump had been to Epstein's plane and his house. And so, your reaction to this news today?
Well, I mean, it's not surprising. I think we've all expected that evidence exists of a lot of close relationship between Epstein and Trump, but it is certainly news that there are actual, emails between different folks around Epstein about Trump and how close they really were. So, my fear with the release of this information is, and more, of course, with the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva, hopefully later today in Congress, is that as they're able to release the rest of the Epstein files from Congress, you're going to see Trump doing everything and anything he can to distract. And that might include going to war with Venezuela, which he's already on the verge of, apparently, not to mention all the other mayhem that he could cause. So I'm deeply concerned about that. But I will say about the Epstein files that we've all been demanding this for quite some time, I think with the understanding that there was, something terrible going on. The women involved have, implied it. They've been, I think, afraid themselves to talk about it and who was involved. But I think these files are going to tell us a whole lot. And again, it's going to lead to, I think, investigations by Congress into what must include Donald Trump.
So switching gears now to Illinois, you and I had spoken about a month or so ago, and prior to Prop 50 passing in California, when we were talking about Donald Trump going into these states and basically mandating that they redraw their maps. And you had alluded to this idea of pairing one state with another. And so when we have California neutralizing what's happening in Texas, then those kind of cancel each other out. But whether the other Democratic weapons would be used would depend on what happens next. Since our conversation, we have seen, yes, Texas redraw its maps and that get neutralized by what happened in California just a few days ago. But we've also seen maps redrawn in Missouri, redrawn in Ohio, and redrawn in North Carolina. Recognizing now that we only have a few weapons at our disposal to again, neutralize what we're seeing, what can you tell us about how Illinois will be used in terms of neutralizing those other states?
Well, if you look at a map, we're neighbors with both Indiana and Missouri. And I've sort of taken it on as a personal project to focus on what's happening in Missouri, because that can be reversed with a referendum. And so we'll see what happens. There's been some success, I believe, at the moving toward that reversal in Missouri, and I'm going to help in any way I can there as well. And then there's Indiana, and Indiana's been on again, off again about whether or not they're going to redistrict, and I've made it reasonably clear that Illinois will have to move seriously toward the idea of redistricting if Indiana is going to do it. If they back off, they need to understand that they will get neutralized if we go about redistricting. So, if they're rational, I think they'll choose not to redistrict. So that's something that I've been very clear about. Now, Indiana's pushed it off till the first week of December. That they'll consider it. And so we're going to, be watching closely to see what will happen there. And then, of course, we're watching the Voting Rights Act and how it fares in the Supreme Court. But here in Illinois, we follow the Voting Rights Act, and we will do so if we have to redistrict. I've said all along, I don't want to redistrict. I don't think mid-decade redistricting is a good idea, but we live in a world where they've broken all the rules, the Republicans, and we're going to have to react to preserve our democracy as they are trying to take it away. So we saw what happened in California. One other thing I want to say about this, I think about the history, and I think you probably have looked at this. These independent commissions, which I think in general are a good idea, But I chose, back in 2018 when I was running for governor, I talked a lot about the idea of maybe we should have an independent commission in Illinois. But when I really looked at it, I thought, well, we're unilaterally disarming if we do that. And California had already unilaterally disarmed, and so had New York. And but I looked at it and said, well, gosh, look what they've done in states like Texas and Florida.
Right.
Why are we Democrats the ones who are responsible for having independent commissions when they're, districting in a way that clearly is a violation of the Voting Rights Act and are willing to take away people's rights? So we wanted to be clear that we're going to follow the Voting Rights Act, and we're going to do it again if we have to redistrict here, but we don't have to undo what other states, have to now undo in order to fight fire with fire.
So I hear what you're saying in terms of serving as a deterrent for Indiana, but in net, the Republicans are still able to do this in other states. And so if they know, okay, all we have to do is just avoid Indiana and we can still get away with what we're doing and that will still net us more seats in the House. How are you thinking about Illinois' position in the broader environment? Because it's not like we haven't already seen this action from Missouri. It's not like we haven't already seen this action from Ohio. It's not like we already haven't seen this action from North Carolina. And so if you're looking for an impetus for Illinois to serve as a way to counteract what's already been done, we already have plenty of evidence that would kind of warrant a map redraw in Illinois now. And so can you speak on that idea?
Sure. Well, let me start out by being clear with you, and I think you know this. I'm on team fight. I mean, we are going to have to use every tool in the toolbox, and maybe some that are not in the toolbox, to try to push back on the kind of tyranny that's being brought on the country. So I'm willing to do the things that are necessary. I also would point out that we start out with a map in Illinois where Democrats have won 14 out of 17 available districts. So if we redraw in Illinois, we probably could come up with one more district. And I understand the desire for everybody to do whatever is necessary. But one more district in Illinois. We'd also be stretching some of the districts, so it's not 100% clear that you'd end up with 15 Democrats. Let me also say about Texas that it's clear from the results last Tuesday's election, 8 days ago, that we've had a significant move by Latino voters back to the Democratic side. And if that happens in 2026 in Texas, even the redrawn districts, the 5 supposedly the Republicans would take, would probably only yield 2 to them.
Right.
So just thinking about the entire map of the United States, and if you look at Dave Wasserman has posted about this online, it looks like, all the redistricting that already will have occurred, putting Illinois aside, will be around a net 1+1 for Republicans.
Right.
That's not to say that we shouldn't all do what's required and necessary here, but I want to make sure that Indiana knows that if they go ahead and redistrict and they want to take 1 or 2 seats from Democrats, there are only 2 Democrats in their delegation, that we're going to seriously have to look at it and that they should know that that threat exists. Let me also say that I'm for independent redistricting. I mean, I think that we should all have a independent redistricting commission, but you need every state to do it.
Right.
And there was an opportunity to do that back in 2021, the For the People Act. You've heard a lot about this, but we did this. Democrats voted for it. Almost every Democrat voted for it, I think, save for one. And every Republican voted against it. So it's clear who wants fair maps here, and it's Democrats. But again, if they're going to steal seats, if they're going to cheat mid-decade rather, then we're going to have to unfortunately fight fire with fire.
And I hear what you're saying about the fact that it's largely a wash. I've reported on that on my channel as well. The elephant in the room, of course, is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, because that would unlock basically 20 seats across the country if Republicans want to redraw those maps and basically eliminate every minority-majority district that they have in all of their states. And so we may see fewer Democratic seats in Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and Texas and on. And so that opens up an entire new opportunity to have to fight on a brand new battlefield, unfortunately. But to that point, we do have to fight fire with fire and figure out what we can do, where we can do it.
And
Um,
I'm for standing up and fighting in all of those circumstances. It's just that, we have a unique situation, I think, here in the Midwest, both Missouri and Indiana, and I think Illinois holding out, I think, might have the result of keeping Indiana out.
Last question on this. What are the technical aspects of being able to do this prior to 2026? What are some deadlines that we have to keep in mind? Can you just give some insight into how the process would actually work and how
Yeah,
quickly it
so
would be able to move?
yeah, we good question. Because Illinois is in a kind of a difficult situation. We have our primary very early in March of next year, and the deadline for turning in your signatures has already passed in order to get on the ballot. So what would have to happen would be that we'd have to create a new deadline and have people go collect signatures in those new districts if there was redistricting. And then we'd have to set that deadline so that you could actually print the ballots with the new names that would be on the ballot, because no doubt in redistricting you'd have some new people running, maybe some people not running. And so I think a lot of change would have to take place. Remember, March 17th is not very long from now. So a whole lot would have to change. And a lot of people would have to go out in the middle of winter, basically, collecting signatures. But it's been done before. It could happen again.
Okay,
Yeah.
so switching gears here, finally, I want to hit on one more topic, and that is the idea of ICE having come into Illinois. Can you give any update as to where that stands, especially in light of the fact that not only did Judge April Perry rule against Trump's ability to be able to deploy the troops there, but we had the Seventh Circuit uphold that decision?
That's right. So there are really two big cases that are happening at once. They're ongoing. One of them is the one you just described about the National Guard, and that, of course, is reaching all the way to the Supreme Court. We'll see what they rule. But so far, we've won at every level there, keeping National Guard out of federalized National Guard out of the city of Chicago and the surrounding areas. So that's one issue. The other is that there's another case, Judge Ellis. It's a private case in federal court, not one brought by the Attorney General. And in federal court, we have been winning there as well. In the private case, we being all of us who know that ICE and CBP have overstepped the bounds of their authority. And in fact, that court is limiting their ability to, for example, use tear gas, to go arrest people without showing any identification, et cetera. And we're winning, in every one of those motions that's been brought. Those cases remain and are being actively litigated. Let me add, though, that we've created an accountability commission, the Illinois Accountability Commission, headed by two former federal judges, very well respected, and with members of it that are well respected from all walks of life. And that accountability commission is gathering evidence so that people could go to court in order to limit ICE and CBP in their activities going forward. So, okay, that's another thing that's happened. And then there's new news, which has happened in the last 24 hours. News that Gregory Bavino, who's been leading the CBP and ICE effort on the ground here in Chicago, and has just been terrible for our communities. I mean, it's traumatized our children. They've done, they brought in Black Hawk helicopters, and they've been attacking buildings in our city, really making things very unsafe and frankly, costing the taxpayers of the country a lot, not to mention the economy of the Midwest. He has announced that he is leaving and taking with him 150 of the 250 ICE and CBP officers that are on the ground. So they'll still have a presence here. It'll be much smaller. And we'll still be against their presence here and what they're doing anyway. And so that's been kind of big news, headline news in the Chicago Sun-Times and Tribune. And we're very hopeful that we can bring the temperature down and importantly limit what ICE and CBP are doing. Because remember, I know that Trump wants to bring troops into our cities. He's got aims that are much beyond immigration. He wants to affect the 2026 elections by posting them at polling places. But uh, Meanwhile, he's got troops on the ground with ICE and CBP. They're wearing uniforms. They're carrying automatic weapons. They're frightening the heck out of the citizens of my state. You know, the residents here people are having to walk around with proof of U.S. citizenship. Do you carry proof of U.S. citizenship? I don't, and you shouldn't have to. But brown and black people literally are just being stopped because of the color of their skin and asked to prove who they are. Now, believe that Donald Trump is also kind of using the facts of our having reduced crime over the last 4 years to now say, as they're retreating, that, oh, look what he's done to reduce
Right.
crime in
Right.
Chicago. It's complete BS. And of course, we've cut the homicide rate in half here. All of the violent crime rates have gone down by double digits every year, by the way, for the last 4 years. So, Donald Trump now wants to claim victory and go home, kind of like Gorbachev in Afghanistan way back when. How do you retreat? We'll just declare victory while you're pulling out.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm very concerned, nevertheless, for the people who live in Little Village and Pilsen and throughout the Chicagoland area, and their safety and security. I'm just, Gregory Bavino is somebody people should pay attention to. You don't hear a lot about Tom Homan, do you, anymore? He's not on any of the programs. Seems like ever since everybody found out that he was being bribed and has been investigated by DOJ, that you don't see him anymore. But Gregory Bavino is the guy you should pay attention to because he's about to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and attack the people of that community as well.
Just on the point that you made about accepting bribes, that it really is open season in the Republican Party. Not only did Trump try to get $230 million from the DOJ, and we'll wait and see what happens on that front, but that little provision tucked into the CR, the continuing resolution, allowing Republican senators to be able to get anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million because they were rightly implicated in the investigation into January 6th. And so really, again, just open season. If any Republicans want to for the federal government or take money or take bribes, clearly they see that in Trump's new kleptocracy, they have carte blanche to do exactly that. One last question on the pulling out of Chicago. Do you have any indication as to why they did that? Is that related to the Seventh Circuit decision, or is it for a separate reason entirely?
It's unclear. I mean, it is true that they have been losing time and time again. We have, done everything that we can to push back, and they've been unsuccessful here the way that they had hoped to. You know that Stephen Miller set a quota for arrests and detainment and deportations, and they haven't been able to meet that in Chicago, in part because of the work that we've done to support people on the ground so they would know their rights and to take them to court and limit their ability. Look, I want them to take the criminals away. We got violent criminals. Trust me, I would like them out of my city, out of my state. That's not what they're doing. This is not about the worst of the worst. They are going after just regular folks, people who are holding down jobs, paying taxes, law-abiding, some undocumented people who've been here for decades.
Yeah.
And yet, these are people that we ought to be protecting. They ought to go after the worst of the worst. If you're undocumented and you're committing crimes, I don't want you here. They're not coordinating with us. They're not working with us to make that happen. I'd like them to help us get criminals off the streets. But again, Donald Trump isn't doing that.
We'll leave it there. Governor Pritzker, thanks so much for your time as always.
Thank you.